Joining me tonight on Times Now is Mr. Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa of the G20. Congratulations, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Hard work of the last 1 year pays off with a joint full consensus Delhi declaration. Many congratulations to you. Can you give us a sense of how difficult was it to get this consensus? And you emphasized in your press conference saying that no footnotes and absolutely no riders, a full consensus. Were there any secrets and any miracles that you worked behind the scenes?
So, Navika, this is one of the rare documents in the history of multilaterals where you have 20 countries, all of them agreeing on every single issue, including the geopolitical issue of Russia-Ukraine. It's no chair summary, there is no footnote. Everyone has a consensus. Every single para has a consensus. Every word has a consensus. And this really, truly demonstrates India's unique leadership and Prime Minister's great leadership in bringing the whole world together. So this is a moment when the developing countries joined hands with India, the developed world joined hands with India, and Russia, China, everyone joined hands with India on all aspects of development, of growth, of progress, as well as on geopolitical issues. So this is truly, to my mind, this is a unique moment for India.
Mr. Amitabh Kant, the fact that paragraph 32 had always been a sticking point, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and that we managed to get this declaration without expressly naming Russia, was that something that Delhi was able to deliver, given its commitment to helping Ukraine and the rest of the world, and talking about war not being an alternative, as well as protecting its bilateral relationship with Russia?
No, it's a very strong para. Actually, if you people read it correctly, it's a very, very strong para. It's called Planet, People, Peace and Prosperity. That's the title we have given it. Planet, People, Peace and Prosperity. And what it really says is that we must get back to the basic principles. We recall Bali, and it says concerning the war in Ukraine. Everywhere it says war in Ukraine, and it says recalling Bali, then it gets into the first principles of territorial integrity, of sovereignty, of political independence, and of territorial acquisition as well. All those principles are laid out, and then it gets on and also talks about the food, grain, fuel initiatives which have taken, and those are critical for the developing world because a lot of food needs to be supplied around the world from both Russia and Ukraine. It talks extensively on that, and then again it talks about just and durable peace, and it again talks about territorial integrity. It's a very strong para, and finally it ends with one in the spirit of one earth, one family, one future. And the last line is a one-liner. Today's era is not an era, is not a war. And it sends out a very strong message, not merely with reference to the Russia-Ukraine war, but to all conflicts around the world which are impacting poor people. So it's a different, if you look at it, from Bali we moved on. It's another day, another time. And today's world calls for getting back into the UN principles, where the UN itself has, become is not able to, on its basic principles, is frozen today. So it tells every country, and this really demonstrates the power of G20, that it is a much stronger voice than even the United Nations.
Well, Mr. Amitabh Kant, I'd like to be a fly on the wall and get your sense in what were the sticky points. Almost till the end, there were differences of opinion coming in, and also the absence of Mr. Putin and Xi Jinping, the heads of states of two large countries. What were the sticking points, and how did India manage to get this consensus? Any anecdotes of any special role played by Prime Minister Modi?
So there were various challenges. There was a challenge on uh, some of the India narrative that we wanted to bring in, like Vasudev Kutumbakam, life, lifestyle for environment. There was a challenge on women-led development, etc. And there was a huge challenge on the climate side, where the developing countries' perspective was not being taken care of. We brought it all together because if this document is powerful because it speaks the voice of the developing nation. It speaks the voice of the global south, and it speaks the voice of the emerging markets. And to that extent, this is a very, very powerful document, which for the first time demonstrates that actually we can bring the developing world together and bring their concerns to the table. And that's what India has done really in this document.
Mr. Kant, I was reading the Bali Declaration, and very interestingly, there is a footnote there, and I'm quoting, nothing that one member has divergent views on debt issues in paragraph 33 and emphasized the importance of debt treatment by multilateral creditors like the MDBs. No such footnote this time. Is there a major breakthrough here as well?
Yeah. Bali had a footnote. Even the Ukraine para it was a split para. It was a split para because it talked about most members, some members, few members. But the Prime Minister told us that G20 of India must have be consensus driven. Consensus has to be the basic foundation of G20. And therefore, there was no option but to work around bringing everybody to a consensus and ensuring that multilateralism functions well when everybody is ambitious, everyone is inclusive, and yet everybody is able to build a consensus. And that's what we've done also in the Russia-Ukraine para. We brought back the strength of G20. We brought back the ambition of G20. We've made it a very, very inclusive body now. And it really is a voice of the global south in this entire document. If you read it very carefully, it's from the preamble itself, it is speaking the voice of the global south.
Mr. Kant, any reaction, feedback that you got from some of the larger countries and member states participating in the G20 on how this was hammered, the consensus was hammered in the final declaration? Anything complimentary that they had to say to you?
Oh, well, they didn't have to say complimentary things. They said that India is a very ruthless negotiator. So finally, eventually, after 200 hours of negotiation, after 15 odd drafts, and after many bilaterals, India, South Africa, Brazil, and finally Indonesia, 4 of us got together and gave the final draft, which we thought was the best balanced draft. And we said, we've consulted everybody, had 200 rounds of bilaterals, done 15 different drafts. This is the final best draft which we feel is necessary. And then I had to throw the weight of the Prime Minister. And I said, Sherpas will have done it all. I took it to the last minute. I took it to the last minute and I said that this is the final draft yesterday night at 12 o'clock. And I said, no Sherpa will discuss this anymore. If any Sherpa has a problem, please ask your leader to discuss with my leader, because my leader thinks that this is a very good draft. And finally, and I said, if anybody has an issue, please tell your leader to talk to my leader. Today morning, no leader had an issue, no Sherpa had an issue. The draft was accepted as a final draft and it sailed through. That's the story.
Well, that's the story of the consensus draft. And Mr. Amitabh Kant, what a sterling work and job done by you to get this consensus Delhi declaration, on the table for the G20. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. We'll take a short break. On the other side, news continues.